All right, ready to dive into some serious psychology today. We're taking a deep dive into Robert Cialdini's influence, the psychology of persuasion.
Ah, yes, this one. A classic. I'm excited to break it down with you.
Seriously, this book is like a decoder ring for understanding why we say yes. And as a learner, you know I'm all about that efficient knowledge gain.
It's all about those subtle psychological levers, right? The ones that nudge us toward decisions we didn't even know we were making.
Exactly. So by the end of this, not only will you be able to spot those tactics, but you'll also be able to use them ethically, like become a persuasion ninja.
Think Jedi mind tricks, but for everyday life. From small talk to that big presentation at work.
Okay, so before we get lost in the persuasion maze, lay it out for us. What's a core of Cialdini's work, these principles of persuasion?
All right, so Cialdini breaks down persuasion into 6 fundamental principles. Later on, he added a 7th, but we'll get to that.
Okay, so 6. What were they again?
Reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. They're kind of like mental shortcuts that can sometimes bypass our rational thinking.
Ooh, interesting. So they work on us subconsciously. Sneaky.
Exactly. They operate on that automatic level, which is why they're so effective, but also why we need to be aware of them.
Makes sense. All right, let's break them down one by one. Let's start with the reciprocity. This one always gets me. It's like, I can't resist returning a favor, even for tiny things. Why is that?
It's hardwired, really, deeply ingrained in us. We're social creatures, right? So reciprocity is a key part of how we build trust and cooperate.
I guess that makes sense, but how does that translate to, like, being persuaded?
Think of it this way. We're obligated to repay kindness, even if it's just a compliment or a small gift.
Wait, so Cialdini's saying that those feelings of obligation can be used to influence us?
Absolutely. He talks about this experiment where people were more likely to agree to a request after getting a surprise gift. Doesn't even have to be related to the request.
That's wild. So even something small can trigger this.
Totally. It's a social norm we're often not even aware of. He calls it the web of indebtedness.
The web of indebtedness.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to see the web now. It's everywhere. So you're saying even if someone does something nice unintentionally, we feel indebted.
Exactly. And it's not just about stuff either. It works with concessions, praise, even just simple acts of kindness.
Whoa, okay. I'm rethinking all those times I agreed to help someone after they bought me a coffee.
See, that's the power of awareness. You start noticing it everywhere.
Okay, let's move on. Commitment and consistency. It seems like it's all about wanting to appear consistent with what we say and do, right?
Yep, we have this deep need to maintain a solid self-image. Our actions should line up with our beliefs.
Like we won't want to seem wishy-washy.
Exactly. This desire for consistency, it's powerful, but it can also be used to, well, nudge us toward choices we might not really want.
Can you give an example? Like, how does this play out as a tactic?
Cialdini talks about this experiment with a petition for safe driving. People who signed it were more likely to agree to a much bigger request later, like putting a huge, ugly sign on their lawn promoting safe driving.
Seriously? Just because they signed a petition?
It's about making a small public commitment, even if it seems insignificant.
Wow. So they get you to agree to something small, and bam, you're more likely to say yes to something bigger down the line.
Exactly. It happens in sales all the time, too. Foot in the door technique, it's called.
Like those free trials that turn into paid subscriptions. Ugh, I've fallen for that.
You see, small commitments create a slippery slope.
Okay, I need to watch out for those small requests now.
Awareness is key.
All right, next up, social proof. It's like everyone else is doing it, so it must be right.
Right. Especially when we're uncertain or in new situations, we look to others for guidance, especially those we see as similar to ourselves.
So basically, we're wired to follow the crowd.
Think of it as an evolutionary thing. Conforming to the group, well, it probably kept our ancestors safe back in the day.
I can see that. But doesn't it also lead us to make some pretty bad decisions? Like, just because something's popular doesn't mean it's good.
That's the catch. Gotta be a critical thinker. Those viral trends. Sometimes they're harmless, sometimes not so much.
So how do we strike a balance? Benefit from social proof without being, sheep.
It's about being discerning, questioning the evidence, thinking for yourself.
So not just blindly accepting everything, but using social proof as, like, data.
Exactly. Information, not a command.
I like that. All right, moving on to authority. Why do we automatically trust authority figures even when their authority might not really apply?
It's ingrained from childhood. Parents, teachers were taught to respect those in charge, and Society kind of needs that, right?
Yeah, for sure. But it also makes us vulnerable, doesn't it?
Exactly. We see a uniform or a fancy title and boom, instant trust. Even if that person's expertise has nothing to do with the situation.
You're reminding me of that Milgram experiment, where people gave those electric shocks just because a guy in a lab coat told them to.
Right. A chilling example. It shows how easily we can be swayed, even against our own judgment.
Okay, so respecting authority doesn't mean blindly obeying it. It's about being thoughtful about it, questioning whether it's legit.
Precisely. It's about understanding how power dynamics work and making sure they're used responsibly.
All right, let's talk about liking. Everyone loves a good compliment, but how does that translate to persuasion?
We're more likely to say yes to people we like. And that liking, it comes from different things. Similarity, for one.
So finding common ground with someone makes them more persuasive.
Totally. Cialdini talks about how salespeople mirror your body language or find shared interests.
So it's about building rapport, like a real connection.
Right, and physical attractiveness plays a role too.
Really? Just being good looking makes you more persuasive.
Yep. Also, cooperation and association.
Association. Like, if someone I admire endorses a product, I'm more likely to buy it.
You got it. It's called the halo effect. Positive feelings from one thing get transferred to another just because they're connected.
Wow, so many layers to this.
And it's all happening beneath the surface. That's why awareness is so important.
Okay, let's talk about the last one for today. Scarcity. This one hits home, especially with all the limited time offer stuff we see everywhere.
It plays on our FOMO, big time. Scarcity makes things seem more valuable because they're hard to get.
Like those going out of business sales.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you got to get that deal before it's gone.
Exactly. Cialdini uses the example of rare stamps or coins. They're worth way more than their actual value simply because they're rare.
So it's not just about the thing itself, but the idea that it's scarce.
You got it. It's the perception of scarcity that drives the desire.
This makes me think of all the times I've bought things I didn't even need because of a limited time offer.
They know how to push our buttons, don't they?
So scarcity, it's not just about objects, is it? It can be knowledge, opportunities, experiences.
You're right. It applies to all sorts of things. Information presented as insider knowledge, that sort of thing.
I'm starting to see scarcity everywhere now.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Awareness is the first step to, well, not being manipulated.
All right, so today we covered reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. Whew, that's a lot to unpack.
And we have one more principle to cover, which we'll get into next time.
Can't wait. I'm already seeing the world in a whole new light, all these hidden forces at play. It's kind of like we're starting to see the Matrix.
The matrix of persuasion, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But before we go too deep down that rabbit hole, how do we make sure we're using these principles ethically? Like, how do we avoid becoming master manipulators ourselves?
That's the big question, right? It's all about intention. We'll dive into that next time, explore how to use these principles for good, not for, evil.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating. Welcome back to our Persuasion Deep Dive with Robert Cialdini.
We're picking up where we left off, still exploring Cialdini's principles, but this time we're seeing them in action, out in the real world.
It's one thing to, understand the theory, but it hits different when you start noticing it everywhere.
Seriously. So let's jump into those real-world examples. We talked about reciprocity with that free sample thing, but how else does it pop up?
Those charities that send you free address labels with their donation requests, that's reciprocity in action.
Oh, yeah. I always feel obligated to donate after getting those, even if I wasn't planning on it. It's like a little gift makes a big difference.
Right. They're playing on that need to reciprocate. It's subtle, but effective.
Makes you realize how much we operate on unspoken social norms. It's like, you did something nice for me, so I kind of owe you one.
Exactly. Okay, now let's move on to commitment and consistency. Remember those foot in the door tactics we talked about?
Yeah, where you get someone to agree to something small, and then bam, you hit them with a bigger request.
Those are classic examples of commitment and consistency at work, like that car salesman getting you to take a test drive.
Oh yeah, once you're behind the wheel, it's harder to walk away.
Or those free trials for online services. You sign up for a free week, and suddenly canceling seems like a hassle.
Ugh, I've totally fallen for that one. It's like they set a trap.
They're playing on our need to be consistent. We've made a commitment, even a small one, and we feel obligated to stick with it.
This is making me rethink every decision I've ever made. Okay, what about social proof? We talk about restaurants, but where else does this play out?
Advertising all over the place. Millions of satisfied customers, the hashtag one choice of dentists.
Yeah, you see those claims everywhere. And honestly, it works. You think, well, if everyone else loves it, it must be good.
It's like a built-in endorsement, right? Advertisers know that we're more likely to try something if everyone else is raving about it.
It's that whole FOMO thing again, fear of missing out. You don't want to be the only one who hasn't tried the latest trend.
And social media has just amplified this effect. Likes, shares, influencers, they all create this sense of everyone's doing it, you should too.
Okay, moving on to authority. Doctors were our main example before, but authority comes in lots of forms, right?
Oh, yeah. Think about celebrities endorsing products. Their expertise might be in acting or singing, but suddenly, they're authorities on everything from cars to toothpaste.
It's like we just transfer that authority to whatever they're selling, even if it doesn't make sense.
We call it the halo effect. Positive feelings associated with one thing rub off on another just because they're linked.
Halo effect.
Yeah.
Another one for the persuasion glossary. Okay, how about liking? We know we're more easily persuaded by people we like, but how is this used strategically?
Salespeople are masters at this. They build rapport, mirror your body language, find common ground, all to make you feel comfortable and open to their pitch.
I hate to admit it, but yeah, it works. When a salesperson seems genuinely friendly and interested in you, it's easier to let your guard down.
Exactly. They're creating trust and familiarity, which makes their suggestions seem more appealing.
It's like the difference between talking to a salesperson and talking to a friend.
Right. And liking isn't just about superficial charm either. It can come from cooperation, working together toward a common goal.
So genuine connections are key. You can't just fake it. People can usually tell.
Exactly. Authenticity is crucial. Now let's talk about scarcity. We've all been tempted by those limited time offers, but how else does scarcity work on us?
Well, those limited edition products, exclusive memberships, they all play on that same fear of missing out.
Right. They make us feel like we're getting something special, something that not everyone has access to.
Like those secret sales or invitation-only events that make you feel like you're part of a select group, even if it's just a marketing ploy.
Exactly. Scarcity is all about creating that perception of exclusivity and value.
Okay, so it's not just about the actual scarcity, but the perceived scarcity.
You got it. And finally, let's revisit unity. Remember, this is about the power of shared identity, feeling like we belong to the same group.
Yeah, like those Made in America labels. They appeal to our sense of patriotism and national pride.
Exactly. And brands often use this to build loyalty. They align themselves with causes that their target audience cares about.
So it's not just about selling a product. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level, making them feel like they're part of something bigger.
Exactly. It's powerful stuff.
This has been eye-opening. I mean, it's kind of scary how easily we can be influenced, but at least now we're aware of these tactics.
That's the point, right? Knowledge is power. Now you can spot these techniques and protect yourself from being manipulated.
But what about using these principles ourselves? Can we be persuasive without, being shady?
That's a great question, and it takes us to the heart of Cialdini's work. He's all about ethical persuasion, using these principles responsibly, not for coercion or trickery.
So it's about intention. We can use these principles to build genuine connections, not to exploit people.
Absolutely. For example, with reciprocity, it's not about giving just to get. It's about genuine generosity, doing something kind without expecting anything in return.
And with commitment and consistency, it's not about pressuring people, it's about supporting them and aligning their actions with their values.
Exactly. And social proof. It's about highlighting genuine positive feedback, not fabricating it.
Makes sense. And authority, it's not about using your position to bully people, it's about earning trust through your expertise and experience.
Right. And liking, it's about building genuine rapport, not using flattery or manipulation.
And scarcity. Oh, that one can be tricky. But it's about highlighting genuine value and exclusivity, not creating artificial urgency.
And unity, it's about emphasizing shared values and goals, not manipulating people's need to belong.
Wow, this is really reframing how I think about persuasion. It's not just about getting what you want, it's about creating win-win situations.
Exactly, and doing it with integrity.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into persuasion.
We've covered a lot of ground, from those 6 principles to all those real-world examples.
It's amazing how these principles pop up everywhere, right?
They really do.
But before we wrap up, let's distill some key takeaways. For our listeners out there who want to become, more persuasive.
Yes, absolutely. And, do it ethically, too.
So, what are the most important things to keep in mind when navigating this world of persuasion? I mean, where do we even begin?
Well, like we've been saying all along, awareness is everything. Now that you know about these principles, you can spot them in action.
It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring for understanding why people do what they do.
Exactly. And it's not just about understanding others, it's about understanding yourself, too. How are these principles shaping your own choices?
Right. It's about taking that step back and saying, wait, is this really what I want, or am I being nudged in this direction?
That's the power of awareness. It gives you the ability to choose.
Okay, so how can we use this knowledge to become more persuasive ourselves without crossing that ethical line? How do we strike that balance?
Let's go back to reciprocity. Don't think of it as a transaction like, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. Think genuine generosity.
So it's about giving freely, adding value without any strings attached.
Exactly. Like offering helpful advice, being a good listener. Those small acts of kindness make a big difference.
And they build those genuine connections that are so important. Okay, what about commitment and consistency? How can we use that principle ethically?
Think about it this way. You're helping people align their actions with their values. Encourage those small commitments that naturally lead to bigger ones.
So it's about empowering people to, like, follow through on their intentions and become the best versions of themselves.
That's a great way to put it. And it builds trust, too. Okay, what about social proof? I feel like this one's easy to misuse.
Yeah, you can't just fake it, right?
Right. You have to be authentic,
Hmm.
highlight genuine testimonials, show how real people have benefited from, well, whatever you're offering.
So it's about transparency, being upfront, and letting the real results speak for themselves.
Exactly.
Okay, how about authority? I mean, this one can feel a little tricky, too. It's not about pulling rank, right?
No, definitely not. It's about building true expertise. Let your knowledge and experience shine through. Earn people's trust by being trustworthy.
So it's about becoming a go-to resource, a thought leader in your field.
Right. People will naturally look to you for guidance.
And liking. I mean, we all want to be liked, but how do we use this principle ethically to be more persuasive?
It comes back to authenticity. Be genuine, show real interest in others, look for those commonalities, build rapport naturally.
So it's about building those authentic connections, finding that shared ground. It shouldn't feel forced or manipulative.
Exactly.
And what about scarcity? This one can be, well, a little dangerous if it's not used responsibly.
Yeah, you have to be careful with this one. It's about highlighting genuine limitations or exclusivity.
So like if you have a limited edition product or a special offer, you can emphasize that, but don't create artificial scarcity just to pressure people.
Right, people can see through that.
And finally, unity. I really like this one. It feels like it's about bringing people together.
It is. Find those shared values, those common experiences. Create a sense of belonging, a we're in this together kind of feeling.
So it's about building bridges, not walls, and finding that common ground that connects us all.
Beautifully said.
So it seems like the key to using all these principles ethically is, well, authenticity, being genuine, being transparent, and focusing on creating win-win situations.
You've got it. And always remembering that the goal isn't to manipulate people. It's about building trust and communicating effectively.
It's about using these principles to make the world a better place, one persuasive interaction at a time.
I like that.
Well, I think that just about wraps up our deep dive into influence, the psychology of persuasion.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring all those subtle forces that shape our choices.
I know, right? I feel like I've learned so much about human behavior, and more importantly, about myself.
Me too.
So to our listeners out there, we hope you feel empowered to use this knowledge wisely, to become more persuasive communicators, more ethical influencers, and, well, just more aware human beings.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.